Chapter 345, Sun Brooch. You can confirm it before you pay. The hooded Eye of Wisdom walked directly to Klein and handed the dark golden brooch to him. Very generous. Klein reached out to take it, but before he could examine it closely, he felt his surroundings become very hot. Even the wind felt as if it had been ignited. Once it entered his nose, it would spread to his lungs. At this moment, he seemed to have left the cold and humid backland, finding himself in the desert and wilderness, right in the middle of the northern continent. Hanging above him was the sun that radiated endless light and heat, and in his surroundings was the extremely dry and boundless yellow sand. Phew, it makes me want to eat ice cream. Sweat slowly seeped out of Klein's forehead, but under the iron mask, the liquid couldn't fall freely. It could only stick on the spot. Through direct contact, he could feel the pure and warm power radiating out, but the Beyonders around him were not affected in the slightest. After fixing the brooch in place, Klein released his spirituality and infused it into the dark golden surface. With a boom, he saw the sky filled with dancing dots of pure gold light as he received a great deal of information. This included how to use some of the spells in the sun domain with the help of the brooch. Most important of all were the tricks to injecting spirituality and the corresponding activation incantations. One of them included providing the brooch with 2 seconds of spirituality, allowing it to summon a holy beam of light that descended from the sky to purify the undead and inflict certain damage on other targets. A continuous supply of spirituality for 5 seconds, together with the use of the word sun in ancient Hermes, would create a small amount of sun holy water, which would exorcise evil spirits, drive away the cold, and purify wraiths. In addition to the difference between strength and time intervals, the other corresponding spells could be cast as well. Fire of Light was a sacred, concentrated flame that suddenly appeared out of thin air via mere thought. Cleave of Purification was an effective attack against wraiths, and it could also be used to augment bullets. Horror Immunity allowed the wearer to no longer feel fear. Holy Oath was used to temporarily strengthen one's strength, agility, fire damage, and holy damage via chanting the corresponding ancient Hermes term. Sun Halo targeted comrades who were within 20 meters of him. It could effectively boost their courage and purify the evil energies within their bodies. Not bad, other than not being strange enough, it doesn't have too many flaws. It complements my magician abilities nicely. It's just a little hot. Klein's mind was filled with fantasies about himself in short-sleeved clothes. He rolled up his robe, took out a stack of bills from his inside pocket. Together with the 900 pounds he had just received from the lady with the artisan backing her, he counted 2,000 pounds in cash before handing it to Eye of Wisdom's attendant. After counting thrice and finally confirming that there was no mistake, Klein looked at his rapidly shrinking wallet, feeling both happy and sad at the same time. The money he had painstakingly saved had been reduced to 574 pounds and 5 gold coins. However, he also obtained his second mystical item. The number of side effects was obviously fewer than the master key. It was a mystical item which was more outstanding, the Sun Brooch. The only drawback is it's just too hot. Klein reached out and touched his iron mask, and he nearly took it off to start using it to fan himself. With the reduction of his funds, Klein stopped considering the notion of purchasing anything else. He just sat there quietly, listening until the end of the gathering. Stimulated by the massive deal of 2,000 pounds, the gathering that night was relatively lively. For example, the whip woven from the feathers of the holy sunbird was sold for 850 pounds. Eye of Wisdom also made several purchases, buying an ancient book and a Beyonder ingredient. When the gathering ended, Eye of Wisdom surveyed the room and looked at Klein. He said with a chuckle, "You shall be the first to leave." Is he afraid that someone will rob me? Klein thanked him sincerely and walked out of the living room under the guidance of the attendant. He then impatiently took off his hooded robe and iron mask. He had already tried to use his spirituality to wrap and seal the Sun Brooch. It prevented it from constantly purifying the surroundings and prevented its existence from being discovered by other Beyonders. However, the negative effects couldn't be weakened unless it was not on his person. In order to ensure my mental health, I should only use it only when necessary. I can usually rely on purifying bullets and exorcism bullets. Klein left the gathering venue and took a long detour before arriving outside the Bravehearts bar. He entered, circled the area, and quickly came out again and hired a carriage. Unsurprisingly, he quickly saw a figure in a black regal dress outline itself opposite him. Sharon's appearance had not changed at all. She asked in an ethereal voice, "Are you done with your preparations?" "Yes, you can choose the ambush location and time. Notify me once you have confirmed the details." Klein nodded calmly. Sharon looked at him and said, "Okay." Seeing that she was about to disappear, Klein added, "Have Kaspars prepare a box of explosives and bury them all over the planned battlefield." Sharon was silent for 2 seconds before she said, "Steve is also a demolition expert." "No, my main purpose is not to blast anyone apart," Klein smiled. "I just want to put on some fireworks." Sharon stared at him for a few seconds, then she nodded. Witnessing her figure fading rapidly, Klein leaned back against the wall and opened the window, letting the bone-piercing wind in, but he still felt hot. "Back on Earth, I hated summer the most. I like ice pops, ice cream, cold drinks, watermelons." As he mumbled, Klein reached into his pocket and held the Sun Brooch. "This is a mystical item worth 2,000 pounds. Returning to Minsk Street, Klein walked slowly along the road lined with trees to Unit 15. When he passed Lawyer Jurgen's house, he subconsciously looked inside and saw the gas lamp with a slightly blue glow. "There's someone home." Klein laughed as he sighed, his forehead constantly beaded with sweat. Early the next day, on a Thursday morning, Klein had just come out of the bathroom with a newspaper in hand when he heard the doorbell ring. "Who is it?" "Right, Talem mentioned that reporter Mike Joseph will be coming to me today." Amid the tinkling bells, Klein came to the door and reached for the handle. The image of the visitor naturally appeared in his mind. He was about 30 years old, with a black tweed coat and a matching half-top hat. He had sparse eyebrows, charming blue eyes, and a handsome mustache, but his skin was rather rough. He was none other than the reporter from the Daily Observer, Mike Joseph. "Good morning, Mike. Talem told me about you." Klein opened the door and greeted him. He hadn't hesitated to throw the Sun Brooch above the gray fog. Mike Joseph pulled his bow tie and said, "Sorry for disturbing you so early, but I have matters to deal with later." "I understand," Klein said politely. "Have you had breakfast? Would you like to try my toast?" Mike suddenly smiled. "I'm so sorry, that would be so nice of you. If it's possible, could I also have a cup of hot coffee? Milk would do too. I noticed that you ordered fresh milk." "All right," Klein smiled in response. He busied himself with the toast, poured the milk, took out a tin of butter, and sat down, eating without a word. Across from him, Mike was enjoying his breakfast without restraint, oblivious to the silence. "Phew." Klein exhaled and put down his cup. "Mike, you wanted to hire me to protect you." Mike set his knife and fork down slowly and took a mouthful of milk. "Yes, about 2 days, Friday and Saturday, maybe even Sunday morning." "Who wants to hurt you?" Klein asked in deliberation. Mike chuckled and said, "No, this is just a form of proactive self-protection. The editor of the newspaper arranged for me to do an investigation in East Borough, the dock area, and the factory district. It's said that it's sponsored by some church or aristocrat. As you know, gangs run rampant in East Borough. There are thugs everywhere, and there are people who are willing to betray their conscience just to scrounge a meal. I need a bodyguard who is good at fighting and shooting. And most private detectives have certain connections in East Borough, don't they? I don't. I rely on mysticism to crack cases, no deduction." Klein thought for a moment and said, "But I might not have the time in the next few days. I have to see when Miss Sharon will be taking action." Mike cleared his throat and said, "I've already applied for 10 pounds. This protection mission will amount to 10 pounds even if nothing happens." Klein let out a soft chuckle. "Mike, I'm serious. Tomorrow at this time, come after breakfast to look for me. If I have availed myself, I will take this commission. If I'm really busy, then I will introduce you to other detectives. They're also good at fighting and shooting. For example, Stewart or Kaslana." 2 names flashed through his mind. Mike finished the remaining toast and said, that wouldn't be an issue. After breakfast, Klein watched the journalist leave his home and admired the sights of the freezing rain outside through the oriel window. The passing carriages and pedestrians, the dark sky, and the colorful umbrellas. Finally, a normal mission. It neither involves Beyonders nor does it have anything to do with finding cats and catching adulterers. It's a pity that it isn't a commission regarding a murder case or something like that. Otherwise, I would be able to experience what it feels like to be a true detective. There is always only one truth. Klein's thoughts wandered aimlessly as he felt an inexplicable sense of carefreeness. If not for the fact that he was still worried about the situation regarding Sharon and Merrick, he planned to relax completely, visit all kinds of museums, buy a ticket to a large theater, listen to a few operas and musicals, and enjoy the delicacies of the various nations that had gathered in Backland City. Well, I'm a casual tourist, a lonely gourmet. Klein gave a self-deprecating laugh, turned around, and walked towards the sofa, intending to look through the newspapers he hadn't finished reading. Suddenly, he noticed that a slip of paper had appeared on the coffee table. The handwriting was elegant and reserved. "Tonight at 10 o'clock, we'll meet at the back door of Braveheart's bar." Klein was stunned for a moment. He turned his head to look outside the window, sighed, and said, "Is it finally starting?" A catchphrase from Detective Conan.